Hello and a very warm welcome back to Summit Seashore Birding Adventures to all you bird nerds and robin strokers and twitchers and patch watchers. I'm just going to do a short video in response to actually a comment I got on my Rare Birds Part 1 video. And I'm just sort of highlighting it here as I thought it was a good question, and I wanted to give it a good response, so I contacted the person and said would it be alright if I responded through a video, which they were happy with. So anyway, I'm just going to read you the comment that I got. As a Brit who has done Canada coast to coast, Alaska, the eastern seaboard and most of Europe, I wonder how you feel when you see a rare bird in Blighty that you've already seen elsewhere. I just returned from North Norfolk, where they delighted in great white egrets previously seen in Hungary and Wales, cattle egrets and spoonbills both seen previously in Portugal. I also went birding in Madeira, Portugal, an island, and the local guide got immensely excited. We dashed across the island at breakneck speed to see a first for the island. With high hopes of some rarity, all I could see was a humble chaffinch. Exactly, he replied, the first ever chaffinch on Madeira. I did not have the heart to tell him I have 4 in my garden back here in London. So anyway, what I want to do is to do a very short slideshow, break those 3 parts down and look at them individually. Okay, so let's just tackle the second part of that comment first, and I'm just going to reread that part. I've just returned from Norfolk, where they delighted in great egrets, previously seen in Hungary and Wales, cattle egrets and spoonbills, both seen previously in Portugal. Now, the little egret is our most common and regular egret and can be seen in many wetland, urban, suburban, intertidal and occasionally grassland areas in the UK, with approximately 600 to 700 breeding pairs or more, with about 4,500 wintering. Once a rare visitor, here from the Med, it is well and truly established now as a breeding bird, first breeding in 1996 on Brownsea Island in Dorset, and since then doing very well. Grey egret, however, is it's a much larger bird, a little bit smaller than a grey heron, and again was a rare visitor a few decades ago, but again since 2012 has become a breeding bird here in the UK. Looking back on my own eBird records, I noted that I've recorded this species on 44 occasions. First time was back in 2012 at Dungeness RSPB Reserve in Kent. Cattle egret represents another success story of a bird that was a rare visitor but now a breeding bird here in the UK, with the first record of breeding in Somerset in 2008. My first look at this species was actually in 2002 in Spain, next in Texas in 2005, and then finally in the UK in 2013. Since then, I've seen a few, most notably at Grey Lake, Somerset, with some 40 seen altogether, and 49 coming off the sea at Marazion Beach in Cornwall. Spoonbills are a wonderfully exotic species and are always a delight to see, and yet another breeding bird here in the UK. However, this is another example of a species expanding their breeding range northwards as a result of climate change. Their first breeding started in Suffolk in 2019, but however their most successful breeding colony seems to be on the Norfolk coast, so understandably much revered and celebrated by the birders in Norfolk. So I just highlighted the sort of one of the two words in that comment. They delighted, reactions to seeing certain birds, and I just wanted to cover this quickly. So you're always going to get different reactions from different people for different reasons, whether it be their personality or circumstance. So, a new bird for that person, a lifer, that's always exciting. Someone could be a new birder, and this was their first look at a cattle egret or a spoonbill. So, obviously that would be really wonderful experience for them. Obviously, they're a favourite species for people. One of mine's the cuckoo, the European cuckoo, and I always love hearing and seeing that bird each spring. So, a lot of these birds don't have to necessarily be rare. It just depends on circumstance and season when you see them. You could have a favourite group of birds. I love shorebirds. I love the North American warblers. So, depending on the group, depends probably on how you view that bird. New trip birds are always wonderful. I always do a trip list when I go to Norfolk or Suffolk or anywhere really, any reserve, or if I'm birding in any part of the UK, I always do a trip list, and it's always enjoyable to add a new species to that, albeit even if it's a common species for that area. Maybe you've got a flyover bittern or a pinging bearded tit across a reed bed, or you've got a red-legged partridge at the side of the road. It's always, for me at least, it's wonderful to get trip birds. And of course, adding to that, you've got year listing, and that's always fun, to get new species for your year list. So there's another example of why people get sort of, a little bit animated when they see a bird that you might feel is, common or regular to that area, but maybe they haven't seen it for their year list. So, and of course, day listing is a lot of fun. If you're going out to do a big day or something like that, I've done quite a few big days, and things like Christmas bird counts used to be fantastic. And it's funny, you've got the pressure of getting certain species within a restricted area within a certain time, and you might be jumping up and down because you've just seen a belted kingfisher. This is when I was in Canada, or like a pileated woodpecker, because you hadn't had one all day. But the same goes for anywhere you are if you're day listing. Of course, rare birds, they're always lots of fun to see. And of course, success stories like the egrets and the spoonbills. Lots of people who might not be hardcore birders, or they might be very casual birders, or they might just be, people out on a walk, knowing about the success stories of certain species might, delight in seeing that bird because, it means so much to them. And of course, it all very much I'll get enjoyment from sitting watching house martins, or seeing the first swifts arrive, or hearing the first cuckoo, or enjoy just watching a wren jump around. And of course I enjoy seeing rare birds too. So this is the third part of that comment. So again, I'll read that. I also went birding in Madeira, and the local guide got immensely excited. We dashed across the island at breakneck speed to see a first for the island. With high hopes of some rarity, all I could see was a humble chaffinch. Exactly, he replied. The first ever chaffinch on Madeira. I did not have the heart to tell him. I have 4 in my back garden here in London. Well, yeah, I get that. But for me, and this is really just my opinion, but what I sort of read into this is that the guide was probably excited either because it was the first time he'd seen this species on the island. Possibly it was a subspecies then of chaffinch, European chaffinch, Fringilla colebs, as they do breed there, or it was the first time seeing chaffinch after the split by the International Ornithological Committee, meaning this chaffinch would represent a new species. So after that split, this is now been split into a full species. So now, Fringilla madeirensis is an actual species. So maybe that was what his reaction was, rather than it just being a chaffinch. So now I'll just get back to the first part of the comment, and again I'll read it. As a Brit who has done Canada coast to coast, Alaska, eastern seaboard and most of Europe, I wonder how you feel when you see a rare bird in Blighty that you have seen elsewhere. Well, quite simply the answer is yes, absolutely. But look, I like all sides of the birding spectrum and always have, from collecting tea cards and cigarette cards of birds when I was a kid, and of course visiting places like Bird World. Over the last 34 years I've thrown myself into so many different arenas, such as falconry, reading plenty of birding books, rehabilitation, bird ringing, bird surveys, travel, e-birding, history, and recently poetry. However, I do like twitching rarities, seeing birds I have seen previously in different countries, or lifers here in the UK, and it's very exciting. Certain species, admittedly, can bring more excitement than others, which isn't that surprising. Only recently I got to see Baird sandpiper, a species I'd seen well on many occasions whilst living out in Canada, but I was just so happy to catch up with this bird finally here in the UK. Okay, well that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this just short video here. I thought it was an interesting subject to cover, and hopefully we all learnt a little bit more about some of these species. Anyway, I hope that you're having a great summer and enjoying your birding year, and I'll see you in the field.